Welcome back to The Point. I'm Marcel Wieder. During the holiday break, there's been a lot of activity politically. It's been a year in the making, but Premier Wynne finally got her meeting with Prime Minister Harper. In Sudbury, campaigns are kicking into high gear for the February 5th by-election. And a sharp drop in oil prices has finance ministers rejigging their budgets. Joining me to discuss this and more is Craig Hughson from Aurora Strategy Group. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Thanks, Marcel. Good to be back.
Over the holidays, there's been a little bit of Christmas goodwill when Prime Minister Harper met with Premier Wynne just before the Canada-Russia gold medal game. It's been a year in the making. The Premier has written a number of letters and has been very public in trying to get the Prime Minister's attention. So what happened at that meeting before the gold medal game?
Well, they finally did get the meeting, as you say, Marcel, and what we saw was probably a win for Harper to silence Wynne on her year-long attack that Harper had refused to meet with her. They agreed to disagree on the Ontario pension plan. Harper continues to not want anything to do with Wynne's proposal on that. They discussed the Ring of Fire and infrastructure in Ontario, separate and apart. The Ring of Fire as a one-off, and Ottawa seems slow and loath to do anything on that front. And infrastructure programs, the federal government and Harper would like Ontario to apply for one-off applications and not just have a big pool of infrastructure money for Ontario to play with. And that was really the highlight of the pre-game conversation.
So are we expecting to see another meeting with the Prime Minister and the Premier?
I expect that it will come, but we have an election in the works, and probably not a huge priority for Stephen Harper. Now that he's muted Premier Wynne, I don't see a pressing need for him to sit down and have another conversation anytime soon.
Well, let's stick to Ottawa. And Finance Minister Joe Olivier dropped a bombshell earlier when he announced that the federal budget is going to be delayed, basically because of the precipitous drop in the price of oil. And so he's now having to rejig his numbers. What impact will that have on Ontario?
Well, I think it will probably give Sousa a little more, Finance Minister Sousa in Ontario, a little more time to come up with his budget. We do remember that our last Ontario budget was quite delayed after the provincial election, so the budget didn't effectively pass until I would say end of June or July. And so I don't think there's a huge pressing need. Ontario can say that we'd like to see the federal budget before they want to release their own. I know PEI has just come out yesterday and said that no, they're plugging ahead with their budget as scheduled. We'll still wait and see what Ontario says, but I expect it too will be quite late from budget.
Now, one of the things that has caused Olivier to change the date is the price of oil, and the economies in Alberta and Newfoundland and other oil-producing provinces are taking a hit, and that's going to potentially put them in a recessionary mode. Premier Wynne has said that Ontario is prepared to step up its game and basically shield the rest of the country by encouraging more manufacturing. Do you see that as happening, and do you see that as having an impact on the provincial economy?
Well, certainly, and that was manufacturing and investment in Ontario manufacturing was on the agenda for the conversation between the Premier and the Prime Minister. But what will be interesting to see, Ottawa is banking on the fact that the price of oil is going to go back up. That's the delay in budget. They hope that give it a couple more months and the oil prices will be back. And so they're not banking on, I don't think, a long-term low oil price or a low Canadian dollar. So I don't think you're going to see them really saying that Ontario is going to be our economic powerhouse again. And economists would be better positioned to answer this than me. But I do suspect that we are going to get an uptick in the manufacturing sector here in Ontario and in Quebec. And that should help shield some of the economic problems that are going to be hitting the country.
Well, we've now seen the Canadian dollar drop down to around 85 cents, which is what manufacturers were looking for as the sweet spot to encourage more exports to the US and abroad. And hopefully that's going to starting manufacturing that is being pummeled over the years in Ontario. Is there any indication on that?
Well, that and obviously the Bank of Canada's recent reduction in interest rates, I think that caught some people by surprise, and that should get money moving. Ontario has long been trying to get people who've been sitting on money and businesses that are unwilling to invest and grow. I think this might spur some action in the SUSA budget to really get Ontario businesses some incentives to grow and expand.
A little closer to home, there's a by-election in Sudbury on February 5th, where the Liberals have been able to persuade the NDP's former federal caucus chair to defect and cross the floor and come over to the Win side. Can you handicap that race in Sudbury?
Wow, we have not seen many by-elections with the stakes this high for party leaders. And it looks like a very close race between the two front runners, being the NDP and the Liberal candidate, who was the former Democrat. And I don't know that I would want to pick a winner right now. If you had me on in a week or two, just before any day, I might be willing to pick a winner. But it's an incredibly tight race, and like I say, the risks are high for Win. She attracted Glenn Thibault to join the provincial Liberal team, and that is a coup for her, and well done. But if he's not able to hold on to the seat, Kathleen Wynne will not be able to get another high caliber candidate in any of the upcoming by-elections, and none on the books yet, but certainly some expected. And from the NDP side, Mulcair in Ottawa and Horwath here at Queen's Park certainly have a lot at stake if they lose this seat. And Sudbury is a hotbed right now of people flying in to help on this campaign.
I'm told that there's not a hotel room to be found in the vicinity of Sudbury right now. But what about the former Liberal candidate, Andrew Olivier, who came within 1,000 votes of winning that seat and then was denied the nomination and has subsequently released some tapes that he claimed showed that the Liberals were trying to induce him with an offer of a job or a position. And that has triggered a OPP investigation as well as an Elections Ontario investigation. Seems like some sour grapes from the former Liberal candidate.
Well, I know Andrew, and I also a former candidate myself. I know that there are no guarantees and no strings attached when you sign on to be a candidate. So you can't expect to be the candidate next time. And this is indeed politics, and often called a blood sport. So you do need to take your lumps with this game. But I feel bad for the guy, but at the same time, he has touched on a sentiment and a feeling, not just in Sudbury, but a lot of people think that there's something wrong with this process, that he was not allowed to run. And he is going to get a lot of votes in this by-election and will be the wild card, but he's taking votes away from New Democrats and Liberals. So it'll be interesting to predict how he fares. I'm certain he's not going to win, but he is certainly an interesting wild card.
Well, they had a forum poll that was released just a few days ago that indicated that it was neck and neck between the Liberals and the NDP, and Mr. Olivier was nowhere to be found. In fact, I think he was wandering around somewhere with the PC candidate in single digits. The only candidate or party leader who's not going to be affected by this outcome will be the Tories, who are still leaderless at this time.
Well, yes, and but I expect as people in Sudbury start to pay attention as we get closer to by-election day in February, that Andrew's numbers will pop up a little bit. I suspect he'll beat the Conservative candidate, and certainly steal votes away from both the frontrunners.
Are there any particular issues, hot button issues that you see that are taking place in Sudbury that could be a warning down the road for the government?
Well, electricity issues are always an issue in Northern Ontario, and especially this time of year when hydro bills are coming in, when people are heating their homes. So front and center, and I know there was a debate last night in Sudbury that this was a topic of conversation. So electricity and prices and stability certainly be a top of mind issue at the ballot box.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Craig Hughson from the Aurora Strategy Group was our guest. We'll be back in just a moment.